All right, all right. Welcome to another episode of Dealmakers. We are joined today by the one and only J.K. Jackson. Excited to bring him in here in just a moment, but a bunch of fun topics that we're getting into today. We're talking shopping centers. We're talking retail. We're talking about tenant durability. And my personal favorite, I'm very excited to hear what J.K.'s favorite investment is right now. So let's see if I can do a technological miracle here and bring him into the show.
Boom! There he is.
Hey, John. Two old geezers making tech work. That's our first victory of the day.
Look, we've gotten so busy, I haven't even been able to take the gray out of my beard. It's insane. No time at all.
We could probably do it with a filter on Instagram or Clubhouse or however that works.
I need to work on my techno savvy. That's what I need to do. Maybe an avatar, just a younger version of me, taller, thinner,
Okay, so first order of business, John, JK, John, I hear both. Like, how do people address you? Is there a fun story?
Right? I wish there was like a super exciting fun story. It turns out in 1976, like every other boy was named John. And at my particular preschool, there were two other John Jacksons. So my mother was like, that's it, you're JK. So through my whole childhood, I was JK. And then I got out of college, became an accountant. Awesome personality match, by the way. Like that was just some of the best times of my life. I became John because they didn't like the JK. And when I got back into commercial real estate, I mentored with Dave Cheatham and Larry Ortega, and we were all sitting in a room when I was interning when I was interviewing. And Dave looks across the table and goes, "Okay, the John stuff's over. You're JK going forward in real estate."
And we're back.
I said, "Okay." I respond to both, and I grew up with Larry, so he knew me as JK. And now it's kind of hit and miss. Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I used it as hey, is that an acquaintance or a friend? A friend would call me JK, an acquaintance call me John. Now even my kids call me JK. They don't call me Dad. So it's JK. It's here to stay. You like it or you don't. Makes it easier to find me at Colliers because there's 14 other John Jacksons here.
Right.
So yeah.
I thought that you had to be on the inner circle to call you JK, and that was like a special privilege that was earned after doing a bunch of deals and work together, or drinking late night at the bar.
There's some other names they use for late night JK.
But we'll get to it. Well, let's do this. For anyone who doesn't know you that's tuning in, I think it's you bring an amazing amount of experience. I think I read over 300 transactions done over the last 10 plus years, which is an insane amount of deal volume. And as I looked through my inbox, I was like, pretty much every third email that comes in is one of your lease deals or listings for sale or something that you're co-broking. I mean, it's an insane amount of volume. So we're all excited to hear kind of what you're working on, what you're excited about these days. But maybe take 30 seconds and give everyone listening a proper introduction on what your background is, kind of fast forward us today, and what you specialize in, because there's generalists and there's specialists, and you probably have a niche that you're particularly good at.
Yeah. So if I had to sum it up in your quick elevator deal, I'm a 15-year veteran who fixes broken shopping centers, makes good shopping centers great. And it's just that simple. I've been around long enough now to know what works and how to coach people through their drama. I like to pretend I'm also a property manager. So I spend a lot of time doing pro bono real estate, and that's okay. But more recently, what I'm excited about is I've also joined the capital markets team with Mindy Korth and Elle Warner. And we've got just an amazing platform that was rolled out about 2 years ago when the Warner team came back to Colliers from Matthews. So we're super excited about that. I'm spending about 50-50 leasing and that, which makes a lot of sense, except for we're closing a leasing deal every 4.5 days right now.
Wow.
And it's just an insane amount of transactional volume. We've got great support, and they're coming back to the office, which is my favorite part. Right. And we're making headway. I'm excited about 2021. I think there's a ton of opportunity out there, and we'll get into kind of my dream opportunities. But
So I already have 3 follow-up questions, but that reminds me, for anybody that's tuning in live, I want to invite and encourage you guys to, first of all, say hello in the comments so we can see who's listening, because it's kind of hard to tell unless you say hi. And then if John or I say something and you want to dig in deeper, or you want to know more, or I'm just asking boring questions and you want to ask good ones, drop them into the comment and we can tackle some of those in real time. That's one of the beautiful things about doing this live. Say hello, do some power networking, engage. Don't just be a bystander, please be a participant. So my first follow-up question for you is, when you're working with another team like the one that you described, El, you're in Phoenix, they're in a different market. Like, what is that dynamic? Because I actually don't know when you guys do the cross collaborations. I know you do a lot of work with Stan too, and so you've got like a multifaceted partnership thing happening.
We do, and that's one thing I really love about Colliers is they really try to elevate that playing field. And what we found is, yes, the national platforms are amazing. We all love that you can hit 500 million people with every item, and you've spent the money on the infrastructure. But nobody likes it as an investor when you come into town and the broker gets off a plane from California and says, "Gosh, I've never been here before. This place is great. Did you see the airport?" Like, "Oh my God, they have Fox concepts." And you're going, "Wait a minute. You don't know anything about this property." So what we figured out, and what El really came up with, was this kind of the thought process is strategic partner. Let me partner with the guys who are the local experts. And luckily for me, he thought to himself, let me bring on a guy who wants to get into capital markets, who's a leasing expert, because the tenant is kind of very key. And I'm so tied in with that, with having as many landlord side listings as we have, knowing the market. It isn't like I'm looking it up. I've got about every 3 miles all over town. I know exactly where the rents are. I know who's in the market. So on the capital market side, super helpful, because we've had investors come in, they show up in El Mirage and they go, El Mirage, but I've been there. I know it. I know all the city officials. They come out to the tour. It's easier to explain that this is a real opportunity. This isn't just someplace on the map. So I think he's really figured that out.
Yeah. So just for the basic folks listening, when you say capital markets team, you're distinguishing leasing from buy sell?
Buy sell net leased assets, yes.
Okay, got it. Because it's good for you and I to remember that not everyone does commercial real estate and specifically retail all day long. We've got a lot of busy professionals, doctors, dentists out there saving lives that are kind of getting up to speed on this investing opportunity. So that's good. Okay. So another thing that you brought up, juggling your leasing life with your buy sell life. What is that like? How do you be strategic about that?
You have to have absolutely amazing partners to pull this off.
Yeah.
Stan Sanchez, and he does some sales with me as well, is literally the highest integrity individual I know. And he just is amazing at negotiating deals, an awesome mentor. On the sales side, nobody has a more vast knowledge than Mindy. And when you put the 3 together, we're able to really navigate. Just the transaction volume alone is hard, but deals are hard right now. The funny thing is they're happening fast. Mm-hmm. They're still hard. You still have to get super creative. You and I just did one that took some real creativity. Let's see if I can get the camera on there.
Oh, I haven't even seen that yet. I love it.
That was the marketing piece we never had to send out to market.
Well, here, let's pause on that for a second. We'll come back. So I always like to hear like a recent win. This is DEALMAKERS. So a transaction that just closed. That's a great example. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but you want to tell us really quickly about that?
I think it's a perfect example. So getting back to you have to get creative in this marketplace. You have to, you really have to find the right people. And in this particular case, it's the Flying Basset Brewery out in Gilbert. It was an amazing idea 3 years ago. New startup, a pilot and his wife, they wanted to brew. It is a full brewery. They came to us with a plan, and we had a vacancy that was hard to fill, needed some money put into it. And my prior owner, stayed the course, stayed with them through the growing pains, the ups and downs. And then right when they really started to make the turn, the pandemic hit.
Right.
And it kind of set them back. I mean, it really was a tough year for them. And they're the kind of tenant you're really looking for out there in the marketplace. They pulled up their bootstraps and they said, look, we're going to do what it takes. In fact, we don't have the money. We're going to invest more money. We're going to put in a canning line. We're going to do all these things. But then when my owner shows up January 15th, 16th and says, in all honesty, hey, we are focusing more on our construction company and we're out of state and we're not there. We want to reposition. They're not running from this for any reason. They're moving assets. I'm selling 3 other buildings for them. They're getting out of kind of retail. Do you have anybody who would be good match for this? And, my first thought is, oh yeah, that's going to be super easy because, everybody wants something that shows that it's been a real rough road. Hey,
right. A roller coaster of uncertainty.
But there's such a compelling story behind it. And you and I started chatting, within the last 4 months. And I was like, oh, this is a Sean deal. He'll figure this out because you're engaged. You're able to work with the tenants. And I think when you came out here and actually saw it, you were probably a 50-50 walking in the door. And by the time you left, it was just like, oh my God, I think the tenant's going to set the world on fire. I think because of the way you structured that deal, you're going to just kill it. And I'm sure it took I always wanted to own a bar off your bucket list.
Bucket list, yeah.
It's a bucket list item. I'm going to own a bar. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. I'll give the 30-second recap too. So John and I just closed on a new acquisition. I bought the brewery or the real estate of the brewery on Monday. So we literally are just a couple hours into ownership. But it had some uncertainty, but still for me had a lot of upside value add potential and kind of a calculated risk to reward. You kind of walked me into what's really my first single tenant deal. Everything that I've focused on historically has been multi-tenant. And so, we're underwriting the strength of the tenant and their income stream. And if they go out, all the income goes out. So it's different than what I'm accustomed to. Not bad though, because those oftentimes trade at a much tighter cap rate. And, you sign that deal and boom, the value is created overnight. And we were able to mitigate some of that risk in due diligence, right? Get a new deal structured, signed off on, tenant was on board. So, I could go out to a lender today, refinance, and probably get an appraisal of close to double, what we bought it at if they believe in that tenant. So we'll see. I think we'll give them a little time to get up and running, but that's a fun one. And so super excited and grateful that you brought that to me and thought of that because I hope that's one of 3 or 4 or 5 deals that we can put together over the next few years.
Yeah, I think we're going to do quite a few. So it should be a lot of fun.
Okay, let me jump back to another question. I think I interrupted you on your team structure, but you said something that is like the complete opposite of what people read in the headlines these days. And the sky is falling in retail. Every big brand is going BK. Big boxes are completely dead. But I'm hearing you say that you're signing a lease every 4 days. You're as busy as you've ever been. You can barely keep up. Where's the disconnect here? It's like media and kind of the outsiders versus, what you're seeing on the ground day in and day out. Why does that feel so disparate?
I think media is focusing way too heavily on your Class A national tenant brands. Those guys have moving pieces because they had a lot more risk during the pandemic. They had a lot more to deal with, and they have shareholders. So they're constantly having to figure out, how do we cut costs? Where do we do this? And then they have huge staffing requirements as well. And I think that makes a big difference. The media wants to focus on that though. They don't want to focus on the mom and pop tenants who are just coming out of the woodwork left and right because they had time to think about life over the last 6-9 months and realize that, wait, things can turn on a dime. I can lose loved ones. I can lose my job. I can have all these problems. Why am I not doing what I enjoy? Yeah. And a lot of what they enjoy is these smaller concepts. And, I always wanted to own a boutique. I've always been a baker. I've never opened a bakery. Well, there's some restaurant space out there that you can get into affordably right now. Follow the dream. And I hate to say it, but I think dream followers are just coming out of the woodwork. And these are people who had, good careers. They have savings. They're solid tenants. And it speaks to that tenant durability that I was telling you about. Basically, the tenants that aren't going to make it, the tenants who struggle all the time, even some of the national brands where you have a massive, let's call it, mattress store that takes up half of your 2-tenant building. Okay, there's some risk there. Those guys immediately send you a love letter when a pandemic is announced.
A love letter.
But the barber shop stays in and works every day, even though it's against the law. He's like, I'm a worker. This is what I do.
Yeah.
So in my mind, you focus on that guy. Focus on the Flying Basset guy who saw that and worked countless hours to get ahead of it. The dog groomer who went and bought a passenger van because she couldn't go into her space and goes to all of her clients' houses. I want 50 of those in my center, because that's the person that, come rain or shine, they're there every day busting. And those are the guys that really make that durable tenant mix, which is kind of where, when you ask, what would you buy if you were out in the market right now?
Yeah, let's focus on that. The $1 million question. If you've and let me frame it this way, JK. If you've got 100 grand, 200 grand, you could invest alongside somebody in a bigger deal, or you have $1 million or $2 million bucks, you could go out and do one on your own. You could tell me what your favorite would be out of either of those scenarios, or maybe they're the same. I don't know.
Right now, one of my kind of favorite category of what's available out there right now is your 15 to 20-year-old, 15,000 foot to 25,000 foot, shadow anchored, unanchored strip center with very, very durable tenants. A good example, and I actually have it on market right now, is West Wind Plaza out at 107th Avenue and Indian School. Dense infill area, lots of new housing getting built. And I can show you 15 years of AR reports where we have no balance. Not one tenant out of the 14 missed a payment during COVID or any time in the past 15 years. It almost seems unbelievable. We brought a banker out to help us with structuring how the financing is going to work on this. And he looked at it and said, this just isn't correct. He's like, there's no way that nobody has missed rent out here ever. And the answer was no. They know every one of their tenants. It's managed from within the building. Their management office is actually in there. And it just is that bond. And the tenants are all this hardworking, just get it done. But it's a barbershop, an insurance guy, a wellness group, a Mexican food restaurant. It's all the things you would imagine those durable tenants are. A small dentist, a little doctor, family practice. These are the kinds of tenants. So I love that. And then if you can find that strip center with an outlot or a back lot that has 3 to 6 acres of land, and I don't even care what the zoning is, that's your unicorn. Because there you go in and you fight the battle with the entitlements and you create the poor man's mixed use center. You're either doing apartments, you're doing senior living, you're doing medical, you're doing small bay industrial, but the sky's the limit. And usually people have viewed that over the years, at least the ownership groups that own the building now, as the dead space. What do we do with all this dead space behind the shopping center? We had to buy it years ago because it came with it. And that right there is where I think investors have just a huge opportunity.
Well, okay, so that's fascinating. And a couple of things, you talk a lot about tenant durability, and what's fascinating about a mom and pop versus a national is like they have a personal guarantee in a lot of cases. Their life savings into it. They've pledged everything, and this is everything that they've gotten. So they will fight a lot of times like a big national credit may not. It's kind of we're talking about it in my internal mastermind group of other, commercial landlords. It's like, what would you rather have now? The big name brand mattress store that might or might not cooperate and wrap you up in a legal fiasco, or the mom and pop who's just been the steady Eddie, like you said, for the last decade and a half. It's different. Like people are feeling different now than they have probably for the last decade or longer. And then the other piece of that was, so An out parcel, let's distinguish that a little bit. So out in front of a building, you might have a building.
So this is more like a back or side parcel.
Okay, versus behind a shopping center, space that isn't as visible, isn't as accessible, but we could still use that. So maybe break that down a little bit further. What would you do with something out front? What would you do with something behind?
So a lot of people, if you have the room out front, that gets into parking calcs, what the city's going to let you do, ingress, egress. Those are huge because, as we all know, everybody and their brother is going to open a 800 square foot coffee kiosk anywhere right now and then just slay it. So if you can figure that out, that's great. There's a lot of people in the marketplace looking for those opportunities. The ones that I really like are the ones where the access is weird. It's kind of to the side or in the back of the actual shopping center. And it has to do with where the shopping center was built and how they had to buy the parcel years ago. And then they never really do anything with this back area. But these, 40 unit townhome deals, I mean, we're having if you're watching the news at all, we're having a bit of a housing crisis in Arizona. Pretty soon we're going to have negative available housing. People are going to show up at your door and say, okay, you just don't live here anymore. We have negative housing in Arizona. Over the next 5 years, my multifamily guys here in the office are saying, we're not even going to come close to catching up.
Yeah.
Like, we need to build housing and housing fast and as fast as we can. And I'm not an expert in that. I totally rely on them. But I think the cities are going to get very on board with these kind of awkward areas where they don't need visibility. They want infill location. And they're not free to build. Construction costs are high. Yeah. But we need the housing. So that is absolutely one option. And then people also need space. We can't build mini storage out here fast enough. I feel like every other person I talk to calls me and says, hey, can you find me some 5-acre sites for mini storage in Scottsdale? I'm going, I had 5-acre sites in Scottsdale for mini storage. I'd be doing awesome. It doesn't exist. You got to go tear something down. That's when I get into like that small bay commercial. I love the concept, small office, roll-up door, but it presents like retail, and it takes that outlot or that side lot or that back lot that you really didn't have a use for before, because you're not going to do storefront visibility there. And that's your puzzle maker on Etsy. I can't do this out of my garage anymore. I have 700,000 puzzle orders. My husband's going to divorce me because he's stepping on puzzle pieces all day long. They need a home. Yeah. And those things are pre-leasing before they're even built.
Interesting. Okay. I love it. I love it. Let's see. Good question here from Jennifer. Yeah. We're talking specifically about Arizona. That's definitely where JK is an absolute expert in. She has another good question here that you might want to weigh in on. Will there be foreclosures in retail property? I know this is what I was like salivating for, thinking, hey, there's all this distress coming. I'm going to be buying dozens of buildings at 50% vacancy, and I'm still waiting. So what's the deal? Like, where are all these distressed properties that we're supposed to come down the pipeline?
They may be in another state. I don't know. When it comes to the conversations that I'm having with our capital markets groups out in Florida, here, Texas, Colorado, there's a shortage. There's a shortage of opportunities. It isn't, we have 140 downloads in 3 days on OMs that go out on properties where it was noticeably not surprising because we do a good job of marketing it, but that's a huge number of people out there looking to place money. I think people are looking for security. Now, with the foreclosures, rents out here have not declined and the vacancies have not jumped substantially. So our vacancy rate, and I think Mary mentioned it on your last deal, it's like 7%. It never skyrocketed here. And we didn't even see as many restaurants. And I really thought the restaurants and the gyms, like we were going to see closures left and right. And it just didn't happen. People just kind of hunkered down and got through it. Because we're not seeing enormous vacancy, I think you're going to see people come up on a watch list when one tenant leaves or two tenant leaves because they paid a lot for the shopping center, they did a CMBS deal, whatever, it triggers that. But these people aren't impoverished. These owners aren't losing their shopping center. They own malls back east. We've got, we're not seeing the foreclosures like we anticipate. It's almost like the housing market. We're not seeing any foreclosures now. There may be a reason we're not seeing foreclosures in the housing market, but we're not seeing them in commercial retail anyway.
Yeah. But you bring up another interesting, like where I think we have seen more vacancy, like of that 7% has been in some of the big boxes, right? Concepts that, were relevant, a decade ago are getting a little bit tired. You've got a bunch of big box listings. You probably need to get more.
We've got a couple, and we've got a couple that have literally been vacant for a decade.
Okay.
And now I have not listed it for a decade, so that would look bad.
Walk us through, so someone's going, hey, like, I just don't get what could this become? What's going to be the highest and best use now? What's relevant for 2021? And maybe the next 5 or 10 years, because you're going to put a bunch of money into retrofitting that. So what does make sense now?
So, the funny thing is, and this is where I think brokers forget to get tied in with economic development and planning. So everybody, the catchphrase was adaptive reuse 4 years ago. Oh, I'm doing adaptive reuse. I'm throwing a church into a Walgreens. Okay, great. That's awesome. It's the new Blockbuster to urgent care. Got it. Now with properties that the boxes have remained vacant, there's usually a reason. The grocery has split the trade area. They're not coming back. And you're not going to put we have a very competitive grocery market here. There isn't another group coming in and taking that. And then you end up with this kind of unusual, void where you're thinking, God, who do I target for this? I'm not going to go get Toys R Us because they're not coming, maybe they come back. I hope they come back. But, what do I do? And I found that by sitting down with the economic development people and just saying, help me figure this out, and then calling them every 3-4 weeks, they will literally send you every category of person looking for that size space. So industrial, medical, office, and Buckhorn Plaza is a perfect example. They basically showed up to the table and said, what if we just give you a variance to anything? And we go on, because we all know that's a giant catastrophic pain usually, but when it's driven by them, it's not. So all of a sudden, we've got an alkaline water bottle manufacturing company called Real Water joining our mix out there, taking 40,000 feet and probably going to expand into 60. That deal drove a Family Dollar deal that didn't want to be on a vacant side of a shopping center. And now the third deal is going to infill it, and we're going to do 65,000 feet of leasing in 6 months. That's all insane. Because the city, we reached out to them and they came back and said, we're behind this. We're fine. We get it. And they're getting on board. And as long as they're driving it, it's amazing. And then there's some really great, everybody knows the Goodwills of the world are doing very well. The dollar stores of the world are doing very well. Habitat for Humanity is active in the marketplace with their, restore concepts. We've got a lot of new pseudo warehouse operations that are like your cutlery companies, any food prep type thing went from, hey, we used to cater five meals a day and we're up to 15,000 a day. We need a commercial kitchen. We need a warehouse. We're feeding everybody under the sun. We're getting government assistance with this. So those are kind of the new box tenants, but you don't hear about them. They're not calling off LoopNet leads. They go down to the city and tell them I have a problem. And the city's like, oh my God, John Jackson's been calling me every 2 weeks. He's got this massive space out in East Mesa. Let's go. So that's kind of my take on the big box scenario right now. It isn't go find Home Depot because you're just not going to. They'll let you know if they like where you're at. It's digging deeper with the cities.
That is gold. We're talking about reverse engineering what they want to see here because they don't want the vacancy either, right? Like that's leaving.
They hate the vacancy. It causes vandalism. It brings in transients. Everything about vacancy works badly for everybody.
Give us a sense of like how long would it typically take versus when they're kind of bringing the idea forth. Like, did that compress the timeline by half or?
It was totally different. If we reach out to them and say, hey, we've got a user and it's outside. It's like it hits that red trigger button on everybody's desk. Whoa, that's outside the box. We don't do that. But when it comes, and then you have to fight it, then it's an uphill battle. But if it comes from them, and you can almost approach it like, well, we're a retail center. You want me to put this library in? I don't know. And then they really push. It's like, look, you're already rezoned. And you go, what? Yeah, it's not that easy, but it definitely is very different and much shorter. We got that done inside of 11 months, which was huge because we didn't rezone a whole property. Yeah. We just figured out how to get the exceptions that we needed in order to do the use on that particular property. And it's a very clean property to begin with. It's well managed. It's a great company that owns it. But we were having problems with, as you can imagine, 65,000 feet of vacancy on one side of your property leaves room for vagrants, leaves room for vandalism, leaves room for teenagers to come over and try out all their new CBD accoutrements. It's just tough. So now that center has just come alive, which is, yeah. So
I've heard you say this before, work a project or work a building like you own it. I don't know if that's tattooed on your lower back or somewhere on your body.
Yeah, it says fortune favors the bold on my back, but it is, so I think a lot of times, and if when I was younger in the business, somebody had just said this to me, the second you take on a listing, the second whether that be for sale or for lease or just view it like you're an unpaid partner in the agreement. Like you own the building, it's yours. And if you're going to own the building, you need to meet every one of those tenants. They need to know you. You walk through that parking lot, they see you, they get it. Because if the shopping center is the body, the tenant is the soul. And if you don't know them, number one, you can't sell it because you can't explain it. You can't lease it because somebody's going to go to the next door neighbor and the next door neighbor is going to say something that's going to kill your lease deal. Not intentionally, but they have no idea what you're doing. Take the listing, walk around, meet everybody. Say, hey, I'm the new person coming on board here. Tell me about you. Is this your dream? Is this the dream? Or is this the stepping point to the dream? Because I can help you with that too. But really get to know everybody in there, what their wants and needs are, and then give the advice. Like I always say, the most underappreciated person in commercial real estate is the property manager. And brokers never take advantage of it. That is your best source of information. That should be your best relationship. On your Christmas card list, it should be property managers and then family members. I mean, it's just, they are the lifeblood of that center. They know everything. They know kids' names of the tenants. They know, and then when the ownerships decide to go sell the property manager is the first person to know before they ever engage anybody. They ask the question, do you think this will sell? And if you're best friends, and I'm not saying you have to be best friends with everybody, but it is fun, let me tell you. I'm saying you should be their first phone call because you're top of mind for them. And you can answer all those questions. Maybe they engage you, maybe they don't, but you've been building that relationship. You already have all the answers on the shopping center. If 50% of the shopping center is getting ready to go out, that's a very different target market than, hey, we've got this shopping center, it's 100% full and it's a straight triple net deal. I love my property management managers and I'm careful about who I work with, but I really think that is such an untapped area for most brokers because they get frustrated because they want something, it doesn't come back fast. These people are completely underwater all the time. There's never not a leaky faucet somewhere. Right. Or some, report or CAMREC that needs to be done. They are constantly on, but what a vast source of information.
I think I'm reading the comment here on LinkedIn. John is dropping gold right now, and I couldn't agree more. I'm glad that I can go back and replay this because there could be a dozen just killer quotes. We could make t-shirts out of these.
Well, thank you, Dina.
We'll have a whole new line of merch coming out soon. John's Gems, JK's Gold. Good stuff, man. I don't want to keep you too long here. We're getting tight on time, but let me let me ask you a couple other questions for anybody out there listening or tuning in or who's going to watch the replay, which I think will be most people. Who is an ideal client for you? Who are the types of folks who should reach out to you to tap into your expertise that you know we could refer in? Let me know.
You know, my favorite kind of client is the engaged type. You know, I love it when a client wants to get to know a shopping center. They want to know a trade area. They really do their due diligence, and they have a very thoughtful plan and just high level of integrity. And quite honestly, they really do need to care about people. That makes a big difference to me. You know, I really prefer working with people who their first thought isn't the bottom line. It's what can I do now for my client? Their client is the tenant, that is going to make them so successful that my shopping center just exceeds by leaps and bounds. Those are the guys I really like. I love the when you say people who buy 50% vacant shopping centers, then come in with a plan and just take it to 100%, and everybody in the center flourishes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the guys I think are just amazing to work with.
I was just thinking, I was like, shoot, what does this mean for our relationship?
Yeah, we're done after this call.
And that was that.
We're finished.
No, I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I've heard tenants say that too. It's like, look, you're thinking globally about the health of all these tenants and, you know, investing, you know, some dollars now, which not every landlord does, right? But you know, I want to plug you a little bit more too. It's like you work with landlords, you work with tenants as well. You work with, you know, an independent mom and pop investor who does, you know, a handful of deals a year, and you work with monster REITs, and you really span the whole gamut. And so not everyone can handle that breadth and depth like you guys are equipped to do, which is pretty cool. I'll pull up your email here too, so people can get a hold of you. And you want your cell phone out there to the world, or is email good?
Perfect. Home address. You know,
I'll put your Clubhouse handle up here. They can find you on Clubhouse.
That's important because that pops up all the time. Clubhouse. Toss my Instagram out there. That'll be good.
Is there anybody we should nominate to be the next guest on here? You can throw out a little social peer pressure.
Throw out social peer pressure. Who haven't you had that you've just been dying for?
Well, we're just getting rolling. I know Dina Zell makes a lot of comments, but she's yet.
You know, I would love
Marty's in the queue.
Here, you know, Marty. Now, has Marty been on this yet?
No, she's been traveling in Aruba, soaking up sunshine.
She's very high level travel. She's she goes luxury. She'd be amazing. Gosh, yeah, I'd love to see either of them on this. I think that would just be fun.
It'd be good.
Just a good time. So yeah, well, let's peer pressure them a little bit.
Well, hey, thanks again for not just jumping on the program and dropping gold and sharing knowledge, but also getting me a new deal and some good cash on cash returns in a ripping hot Arizona market. May it be the first of many. And I look forward to us, I guess, drinking some beer at the Flying Basset to celebrate here.
We are definitely going to the Basset when you're in town.
Let's see. I'll share this too. I'm working on this with the tenant, but we're going to come up with some sort of fun promo where I can do buy one, get one beer for people, or figure out how to figure that out. So if you guys are in town, definitely swing by and visit. JK, thank you, my man.
Hey,
I'm
thank
sure
you.
I'll see you very shortly.
A lot of fun. Take care.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.